Yeah, as nice as all that was, now for the real fun stuff. This is what we're all here for today. And really, as valuable as the education and the networking is at these meetings, which have been tremendous, I think that we were all ready for something a little more personal, a little more reflective, for us to all be considering, inspire us to all consider of why we do what we do here and what drives us and why it's important. And this essay contest has just been a wonderful experience of getting people to think about those things, and even better, to share their reflections with others. So this is the culmination today where we're so excited to welcome the winners and honorable mentions here to share with us. But before we start that, I have some thank yous that I want to extend. And the first one really is to Jeanette Henderson and Bunker Interpretive Center for making this space available to us, both at our kickoff meeting in January and today. You need to be sponsored in order to have your meeting here, and they were gracious enough to do that. And, can you imagine a better setting? This is just beautiful. And special thank yous to MI Biz, who has been such a wonderful media partner, and Joe Boomgard in particular. They're wonderful in promoting this whole thing, and then now, of course, in publishing the winning essays, and all along the line, they've been very helpful and supportive. And I also want a special thank you to Klaas Quant, who's here today with Grand Rapids Community College and videotaping this all for us, and I will let you know how you can look at that later on. I will get that information to you. And to the Business Forum Board for supporting this whole effort. And then finally to our review panel, we've had a lot of fun. Dave Opperly with Bissell Home Care, Shelley Irwin with WGVU, Brenda Moore, who was not able to be here today, but Grand Rapids Urban League, Terry McCarthy, who is also not here, but with the Weggy Foundation, Sue Powie with NTH Consultants over here, and Jennifer Womack with Idea Design, and myself. So we've had a lot of fun, and I think that we all feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to read through all over 40 of the essays that came in. It was a wonderful experience for us, and you can imagine very challenging to get that down to this small number that we're going to be recognizing today, but we also hope to find other opportunities to share excerpts from some of those other essayists who had so many wonderful reflections, and so we will find a way to do that and share that in other ways with the community. Let's see. And then, so what we're gonna do is members of our review panel are gonna be introducing the winners, and let's see. And starting here with Sue Powie, will be coming up and introducing Ann Reynolds. So we'll let them read their essays. We'll just flow through that whole process, and then we will have some special recognitions at the end, and hopefully have a little time for question and answers. So, Sue, you want to kick us off here?
I do want to say for all the judges that everyone who sent in an essay to us, we consider you all to be winners. And it was a very challenging thing to read all these and try to whittle it down to just a few. But I'd like to introduce Ann Reynolds. She is the co-owner of Stenson Builders, LLC, and they specialize in alternative energy installations and green building practices. The company is committed to helping each client find affordable ways to reduce their carbon footprint. Ann and her husband are avid organic gardeners, which when she reads her essay, you'll hear some about. She is an elder of the St. Marie Band of Chippewa tribe and dedicates a section of the garden to traditional Native American agricultural practices. And so I would like to introduce Ann to you today.
Lessons learned in a supposedly dead garden. It is a week past Thanksgiving and I am in my garden. It rained recently, so the sunlight shimmers on copper leaves. The ground has a velvety glow in some places, a satiny finish in other spots. The lush greens of summer have been replaced by shades of brown and gray. Umber, sienna, terracotta, bronze, chocolate, auburn, mocha, russet, taupe, sable, slate, charcoal, dun, and ash. Everywhere the earth is dappled, marbled, freckled, mottled, strippled, tie-dyed. This is the garden I share with my husband. His style of gardening is different from mine, but then my style of gardening is different from just about everyone's. To start out with, I don't really like planting seeds. Most of them are so small and require delicate handling. Poking seeds down in a straight row seems oddly fussy to me. On the other hand, if you need someone to broadcast wildflower seeds in a field, I'm your gal. Want some daffodils planted randomly in a grove? Call me. Plants growing in, around, next to you, between compost piles? Now that's my style. Watering is boring, but I'll happily fill every available bucket, tub, and receptacle with compost tea in the morning. I'll sense the right moment to come back in the afternoon and then lug that warm, gooey liquid to every corner of the garden. I'd rather mulch than weed, but if I have to weed, I relish it because it means contact with the soil. I love to carry huge armloads of produce from the garden to my kitchen. If I have surplus veggies, I would rather give them away to friends and strangers than preserve them. Putting food up for winter may be a noble pursuit, but like that seed poking thing, a little too fussy for Ann. What I really love is mulching and composting and mulching and composting. I hunt for organic matter, haul organic matter, spread organic matter, dream about organic matter. I say yum when I see organic matter. I feel most powerful when I am building soil, that funky, fragrant, crumbly, gorgeous black gold. Most people compost to benefit their gardens. I garden to justify my composting Jones. I am so comfortable walking in my garden at this cool and quiet time. I suppose I should be feeling sad, or at least filled with bittersweet sentiment. I should be putting my garden to bed, saying goodbye, good night, adios, see you next year. Instead, I look around and see my garden in its peak of glory. I look down and see so many things. Dinosaur kale, rosemary, and Brussels sprouts still thrive. I bend over and pick up small corn cobs and beans missed at harvest time. I spy nuts, twigs, and a papery snakeskin. Layers of straw and leaves lay on the ground. I know, I hauled them here. Under that motley carpet is a hidden universe of insects, worms, bacteria, fungus, and microbes. Mice, moles, wasps, and other subterranean creatures have a well-established metropolis under my feet. Before I leave, I must visit my compost piles, the true heart of my garden. The edges are frosty, but the center is hot. I stick my hand in the pile and bring out a handful of soil. The soil is warm and full of worms. These are my wild guy-gals, so named by me because worms are hermaphrodites. I keep my domestic guy-gals in a box in my kitchen. Worms are the 8th, 9th, and 10th wonder of the world. They break down toxins, aerate soil, fertilize earth like nobody's business, and they make great pets. I know my compost will continue to work in winter. Snow will form an insulating blanket on the outside. Waste will continue to break down in the warm center. Organic matter on the edges will break down more slowly. It will go soft and runny and slimy like a jack-o'-lantern's left out too long. It will wait in this partially digested state for spring's warmth to finish the job. For most northern gardeners, there's a growing season with a beginning, a middle, and an end. First you plant your garden, then you tend it, and then you harvest it. Then you wait for next year. If you compost and mulch, there is no beginning and no end. Each season blends into the next. This year's plant refuse is breaking down in my compost now to build rich soil to feed next year's plants, which will provide leaves and stems and roots for next year's compost to feed plants the year after. And so it goes ad infinitum, with or without me. I know that if I ever stop composting in this spot, nature will pick up where I left off. For me, Winter is not a time to plan a garden. Winter is a slightly altered phase of a garden. Soil is alive and evolving 365 days a year. It feeds on the leaves, hay, and straw I hauled here and the rot of the garden itself. Rot is everywhere, all the time, and rot is good. I will visit the garden often in winter to bring kitchen scraps to my compost and just to be here. I will hear the buzz of life rising out of the snow. As I walk away from my garden, I feel quite philosophical. Then I realize that I have been humming that Circle of Life song from the Lion King movie. That knocks me down off my high horse a bit. I go in, check on my indoor worms, and continue my day. I come at environmental awareness from a totally intuitive place. I know we are in the midst of an environmental crisis. I realize the problems need to be studied and quantified in a precise manner. I know remedies must be found. I will continue to study about the environment, but I will always come back to the fact that Earth, whether we mean Earth with a small e as in soil or Earth with a big E as in our planet, is a living organism and will heal itself if we just fix our mistakes and get out of the way.
And next up, we have Dan Schoonmaker, another one of our winners. Dan's the Director of Member Services for the West Michigan Environmental Action Council, and he used to kind of have a position similar to mine in that he was a journalist in Grand Rapids and a former public relations professional. He was the former managing editor of Rapid Growth Media and a staff writer at Gemini Publications. He also holds an accreditation in leadership or lead certification, right? We just call it that, lead AP. And he was also a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve and Operation Enduring Freedom. No further ado, Dan Schoonmaker.
Thanks, Joe. And I do want to add how happy I was to be published in MI Biz again as a result of this. And before I start, I also want to thank Tony Bozzoli, who was one of the interns who, we had a major project going on the weekend of the deadline, and because I'm a modern professional, I don't do anything until about 3 days before the deadline. And his willingness to take on some of my work allowed me to do this, and I also like to thank my wife, who allowed me to spend a Friday night and a majority of weeknights working on this for a couple days. So because I know grass is more than green. A few years ago, in the midst of a thunderstorm, I spent the better part of an afternoon on my porch watching the rain hit the pavement. What caught my eye was how the water hit my driveway. Small, consistent splashes that made standing pools before draining toward the road. Then down along the gutters of my steeply sloped street, the water eventually finding its way to a storm drain, and then from there to the Grand River in Lake Michigan after. Not long before, this would have been unremarkable to me. But I had recently learned terms such as non-point source pollution and stormwater runoff. I learned that the water that hits my pavement would not only follow a man-made path of least resistance directly to the river, but also pick up every molecule of car tire, lawn fertilizer, dog feces, Frito-Lay wrapper, and whatnot it encounters along the way. Today, a few years and 2 careers later, this concept dominates my professional life. But before that afternoon, all I would have seen was a gutter full of rain. There was another afternoon back then in my backyard with the dogs, a long chair and a magazine. It was sunny and the grass was this thick, early spring green that only luck and science can create. I was reading about how a larger share of crops being lost to pests that were lost being pests than before were first introduced to the industry in pesticides were first introduced to the industry in 1945. Veterinarians were speculating connections between insecticide and herbicide use and incidence of cancer in dogs, which were as high as they'd ever been. And here was my dog, Lucky, rolling on the lawn. Not only was the grass an incredible waste of resources and water to maintain, the nation's largest irrigated crop, I learned, but the weed and grub killer was killing the valuable insects that prey on aphids, ticks, and mosquitoes, while making those nuisances that much stronger. and maybe even damaging the environment in ways Rachel Carson never imagined. Yet the dog is all smiles, her white fur covered with loose leaves of grass, coated with toxic chemicals that will seep into her skin and might one day be her death. Before that, all I would have seen was a dumb dog rolling the grass, and all the grass would have been as green. I have lots of these terrible little epiphanies I could share. How my roof was shiny and new before I learned the black shingles had turned my home into a pizza oven. How my freshly painted walls literally exhaled poison. How my bacon comes from 1,000,000-acre biohazard sites. How buying a case of bottled water each week was wrong in a dozen different ways. There are more, many more, and I'm sure you have your own. Maybe it's not strictly environmental. Maybe you've got another peg of that trope bottom line that you've had enlightened in the worst way. I like to think that every now and then the bad guys in the movies walk away somewhere off screen and realize, oh wow, I'm the bad guy. I'm totally wrong here. I'm the jerk, the villain, the conniving coworker, competitor, or whatnot, the one you're supposed to root against. And I know how this feels because sometimes I walk away from an argument of some sort and have that same moment of clarity, and it's just awful. Just awful. We're talking about sustainability, particularly the inherent morality it implies. These type of discoveries are critical and defining. This is enlightening. This is enlightenment, modern and real. The realization, whether gradual and notice or abrupt and alarming, that our actions have negative impacts. When I was a little boy, I didn't think about where hamburgers and hot dogs came from. I think of the package of canned ham and that pig with the great big smile. The happy cartoon pig. I don't know when I realized that my hamburger used to be a cow. Now I think about it, I respect that something had to die so I can eat. There are so many things that I know now, so many little costs. Every time I turn the TV or flush the toilet. Think of what 1,000,000 showers looks like coming out of Lake Michigan. Sometimes it seems our planet is just an upturned hourglass that's not going to spin the other way until we're all long gone. Because that's what it's like to care about the environment in this day and age, as well as any of a dozen other sustainability pegs. We try to do things better, but we're always doing something a little bad, aren't we? To talk about sustainability is to talk about doing things in a different way. Maybe not the best way, but at least a better way. To give an effort and then a better effort as you go along. This is what sustainability means to me. But what if I don't have the option or the time or the patience at that particular moment? What harm can one yogurt cup do? Or one t-shirt or water bottle? And as I think about it, I don't even particularly care about the environment, per se. I don't like the beach. Thought of walking on dunes exhausts me. I dislike bugs and sleeping outside. I don't fish, hunt, ski, or swim, or golf, by the way. I don't like snow or being cold. I don't have children for me to reserve nature. I don't even particularly like children. So why should I care about the environment? Or any tenet of sustainability, for that matter? When I think about preserving anything that lasts 6 generations from now, as I often hear, I can't help but think that in 6 generations, all will be is dead. Maybe my grandchildren's grandchildren, or whether my adventures have been more monopolistic than moral. At this point, our discussion could turn to Plato, Kant, Bentham, and their dead philosopher friends. Are there true boundaries for what is moral? Are we only good when there is something in it for us? Are we leaving out a spiritual component here that may be the true source of morality and by proxy, sustainability? We could also talk about the emerging field of biopolitics, where research suggests that the moral guidelines that inform sustainability are an evolutionary response to the inherent selfishness of not just mankind, but all life. Sustainability might be life's way of keeping its own destructive nature in check. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on these matters, but I do know what it means to do the right thing, even if I don't always know what it is or have the discipline or means to pursue it. This is why I like the triple bottom line so much. This notion that the best decision is the one that balances the competing interests of people, planet, and profits. Hopefully, in no particular order. I know those who work for most, and for some, like the environmentalists, we tip the scales to something a little better for the planet. Hopefully, over time, the balanced scale is way better for all 3. But again, why should better matter at all? Well, why not? Whatever you think of humanity, whatever you think of America or your next door neighbor, everyone wants to be good, right? Most everyone. No right-minded person wants to harm the environment. It's just a convenience, collateral damage. I can't imagine the right-minded person sees an oil spill with anything but horror. I often marvel at how hard we work to convince ourselves that an environmentally responsible alternative can ultimately be a more profitable one. I understand why we talk about the importance of preserving nature for future generations, but do we really need a reason? Sometimes, I wonder if there's something wrong with me. I don't understand why we can't preserve a forest just for the sake of preserving a forest, as an example. No boardwalks or bike paths, just nature protected and, if possible, left alone. Something right and natural that will never benefit me in any way. Is that crazy? I like to think that there are more among us that think this way, at least part of the time. There must be other people out there that give an effort to be better stewards of the environment, just because. And I really need there to be other people out there who can see more than the rain in the gutter and the green of the grass. There isn't a reason for me to go to work if there isn't, because I don't know how to monetize our natural resources. I don't know how to place out the guts of a mountain or the shores of a lake. When I think of sustainability, I think of doing something better when I can, for no other reason than that I should. I think of trying to be good and moral, but never perfect, and learning to be better. Thank you.
And Dan, honorable mentions. City High Junior Allison Arnold. Let's learn from her. In my opinion, her resume is amazing. At age 17, a 4.0 GPA, membership in the National Honor Society, plus the school's International Baccalaureate program. She interns in journalism and in law. She's an active member of the Kent County's Young Women for Change. Will be an upcoming speaker for the Michigan Women's Foundation Luncheon. At last year's Mayor's State of the City address, she was acknowledged as one of Mayor Hartwell's champions in diversity. She volunteers at the Children's Museum, the GRCC's Diversity Learning Center. She's participated in the Keystone Youth Policy Summit on Renewable Energy at Western, hence future board member. City High's debate program. Plus, she is a member of the Environmental Club. Allison did just return from a service opportunity in New Orleans. This summer, she will be attending the Journalism and Media Conference in D.C. In her spare time, she loves her dog, Sadie, and I understand she's a great photographer. Supporting Allison today, her parents, Bob and Chris, and her assistant principal with City High, Matthew Gonzalez. Allison Arnold, come on up to the podium.
The true art of sustainability. Sustainability begins with responsibility, not only toward the environment, but toward oneself. With the explosion of information regarding living a green lifestyle, recycling and fuel-efficient vehicles, to melting ice caps and saving polar bears, the new push toward this so-called sustainability is booming in today's media, encroaching on the lives of everyone. But what are we supposed to do with this bombardment of knowledge in order to truly make a difference? The answer starts with sustaining ourselves, regardless if one even knows what the greenhouse effect is or even what sustainability is, so that we can be responsible and create a healthy world to sustain future generations. Personal experiences have formed my commitment to fostering a sustainable mind and body that can help the world flourish. Ordering a baked potato and a side salad as opposed to French fries is not a typical practice ingrained in today's culture of youth. But to me, it has always been a lifestyle. One could also say that having a life that revolves around maintaining exceptional grades and numerous extracurricular activities, opposed to a typical teenage social life, is also out of the ordinary. While I was joining every club, going to every community event, picking up trash, and gaining every travel experience I could grab hold of, I was not recognizing my limitations, and in the meantime had been endangering my health and my life. Thinking I was doing the best to sustain both the planet and myself, my perfectionism pushed me into a trap of anxiety, depression, and ultimately an eating disorder. How can one truly help sustain the environment and community without not only knowing, but practicing the art of caring for oneself, both mind and body? My poor and destructive lifestyle began to deteriorate me in many aspects of my life, putting me in the hospital March of 2011, diagnosed with severe depression and anorexia nervosa. The first days of reclaiming my self-awareness were some of the most significant times of my life. An aura of light illuminated how powerful the nutrients of food are to sustain not only the inner, but the outer body. It was as if my eyes were opening for the first time, and I was able to see the vast array of colors and possibilities in life. Everything fit together and seemed so simple, so beautiful, and so natural. The world offers all the necessary nutrients and tools to help its children grow, prosper, and make healthy choices in order to sustain future generations of like-mindedness. By nourishing myself and realizing my capabilities, I was ready for all that life had to offer. The adventures my feet would travel, the gardens I would plant, the mouths I would feed, and all of my obligations to Mother Nature. There is nothing to stop growth and prosperity if sustainable actions are made. With the realization of the power of nature's nutrients, I have now become an advocate for healthy food choices that support all components of the body. I have designed and developed my own organic garden, which has pushed me to learn more about the earth and implementing community gardens in Grand Rapids. The growing number of local businesses and farms in West Michigan that produce organic and natural food products and how they work together to sustain each other's businesses is making a profound impact on the community for embracing a healthy lifestyle. My own experiences regarding food and anorexia has instilled in me the desire to form a business based on the principles of wholesome food and an active lifestyle, to help people focus on the soul rather than the pressures of anxiety and society and its control over perfection and body image. Nature only exists through strength and cooperation, and healing from my eating disorder has given me the true wisdom to carry out this message. Following my discharge from the hospital was a school trip to Costa Rica to study the culture and ecological practices. With my new outlook on life, I knew that I was more than capable of taking on the adventure, where I could learn and be able to practice my new lifestyle. The experience in Costa Rica is exactly what I needed to gain an appreciation and awareness of the link between true happiness and Mother Nature. Whether it is as small as Grand Rapids or as large as the United States, the practice of sustainability reaches across borders, cultures, and languages as it travels deeply within what connects us all, nature. Costa Rica truly embodies its national slogan, Pura Vida, meaning pure life. In contrast to the United States, many nations have little commercial industry or even monetary funds, but rather use their natural resources to flourish. The boundless acres of farms and rainforest, plant-based meals, and the joy seen in the eye of nearly every Costa Rican reflects the cycle of all the components of sustainability working together. The rainforest sustains millions of organisms, whether microscopic or as large as the tallest trees, and the species are reliant on each other in order to grow, prosper, and support life. Since the Costa Rican people have a deep respect for their earth and treat it in a sustainable manner, it in turn nourishes them from its bounties and instills in them the passion for living a pure life. One of the local farms we visited on the trip is sustained, not by money, but by natural resources. The animals are fed off of the land, and the crops are used to trade for other goods in the local market. The farm works with the students from the local Earth University, an international school focused on the environment, who created a biodigester to be implemented on the farm. Animal waste travels through the biodigester to fuel household appliances. The farm runs on little else apart from what the earth provides and proves that humans and nature can sustain each other without the use of industry, commercialization, or a vast sum of financial resources. Most Costa Ricans living with scarce commodities other than the great abundance offered by hard work and the earth's prosperity exude a sense of continual birth and renewal, a genuine happiness, a pure life that is vastly different from life in the United States. One can easily witness a U.S. businessman talking on a Bluetooth while hurriedly throwing a coffee cup into the trash can, despite the recycling bin lying right beside it. It is not that businessmen and coffee are evil, or that people of the United States are necessarily arrogant, but there is a lesson to be learned by cultures that do, in fact, live off of the land, working with it hand in hand. Having a high regard for time and taking moments to revel in the world's beauty is also an important mindset in order to truly enjoy the gifts that we are all graced with. Perhaps the Costa Rican Pura Vida comes from the act of sustainability, knowing of the continuous supply of nutrients and that future generations will be able to learn and continue actions of integrity. The time following the trip to Costa Rica put me in harmony with myself, my environment, and the world. I gained further motivation to grow, as well as carry out my responsibility to share a strong sense of community based on the Costa Rican philosophy. Realizing that I cannot live up to my obligations without being healthy, I have now dedicated my life to making the right food choices and the right exercise choices in addition to recognizing my limitations and taking a hold of opportunities to strengthen the world. With the approach toward caring for myself, I've been able to hold various internships, plant an organic garden of vegetables and herbs, plan a trip to Vancouver, Canada for a conference on sustainability, and volunteer my time to organizations that help better society. It takes experience and understanding, not only the knowledge of renewable practices, to be able to carry them out to make a difference. And my experiences have been what has made sustainability such a vital component of my life. Through my experiences, I have realized that the sustainability of both the nature and the human race are intertwined and are reliant on one another in order to blossom and flourish. Identifying my illness as the enemy to my passions and being able to now dedicate my time toward renewable projects has made healthy and sustainable actions an integral part of my life. Whether it is advocating for the awareness of eating disorders, traveling and learning, or implementing gardens and forming business ideas, my hope is to prove how each component of nature's fruits can achieve beauty. Making a difference cannot occur by only doing for one's environment, but by also taking responsibility from within. And that is where the true art of sustainability begins. Thank you.
I'm Jennifer Womack. A few more treats yet ahead of you. Brian Schultz has been a renewable energy program director at Grand Rapids Community College since January 2010. Prior to that, he was construction trades manager. He has a master's degree from Western Michigan University in vocational education, and he taught welding and robotics at high school in the High School Career Technical Center for 20 years. He completed his Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 190 apprenticeship program and worked as a journeyman plumber and pipe fitter for 4 years. Who knew, right? Brian demonstrated a leadership role in the development of a partnership with Habitat for Humanity of Kent County that resulted in the first Habitat for Humanity LEED certified affordable home in 2006. He currently serves on the Sustainable Design Committee, where I'm honored to serve with him, of the West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, and he has served on the Educational Committee as well. He served on the Lead for Homes Committee and the Board of Directors of the West Michigan chapter of the U.S. Green Building Council since 2008. In 2009, Brian developed a seminar in sustainability program at the Cape Eleuthera Institute in the Bahamas for Grand Rapids Community College students interested in a living laboratory experience for the study of food, energy, water, materials, waste, and transportation as they relate to the triple bottom line of sustainability. The next chapter in Brian's life is going to figure that part more prominently. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you about it. So Brian, please come share your essay with us.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll all like to talk about the Bahamas after this presentation. A pathway to sustainability. Why do some people embrace the concept of sustainability in both their personal and professional lives, while others deny its validity and pass it off as a temporary fad? I have struggled with the answer to this question since I first became aware of sustainability in the 1960s. The term sustainability was not used then. Still, the cultural revolution taking place was focused on the same environmental, social, and economic issues that define the triple bottom line today. In my personal life, I have championed living a simple, self-sufficient lifestyle for the last 40 years. During that time, I purchased and lived on 3 separate farms in southwest Michigan. My current 34-acre farm in Berry County was developed as a homestead in 1920, and I purchased it in 1993. At this farm, I practice energy-efficient construction, organic food production, recycling and reuse, renewable energy production, and promoting wildlife habitats. In my professional life, I have championed promoting the concept of sustainability through education and training. Past 7 years, I have worked as the construction manager and the renewable energy manager at Grand Rapids Community College. During that time, I started many sustainability programs, including the LEED certified habitat homes, Green Advantage certification for construction workers, a deconstruction program, a wind safety training program, and the sustainability field study in the Bahamas. However, these accomplishments in my personal and professional life do not explain where my inspiration, sense of responsibility, and commitment to contribute to a more sustainable world originated. To understand the origins of my interest in sustainability requires an examination of my childhood. I grew up in northern Michigan in a small town that strove to reach a population of 1,000 people. When I was conceived in 1949, my mother and father lived with my great-grandparents. The home was a single-room log cabin that my father and great-grandfather constructed from timber harvested on the property. There was no electricity. The logs were hand-cut and peeled. There was no running water. Water was hand-pumped from a well and heated on a stove. There was no toilet to flush. A hand-dug pit with an outhouse 30 feet from the main house provided that amenity. Near the house was a garden that provided fresh, seasonal vegetables. My great-grandmother, with me as her assistant, canned vegetables every summer. We stored them in a root cellar that was located under the kitchen floor. Our property abutted a river that provided fresh fish, while the surrounding woods provided wild game. When I was 4 years old, my parents moved into town. My grandparents had purchased the main restaurant, and my mother worked as a waitress. We lived in an apartment above the restaurant, and I assisted my mother, grandmother, and grandfather with food preparation and cleanup. One of my daily jobs was to fill the salt, pepper, sugar, and jelly containers from bulk containers in the back room. There were no throwaway individual plastic containers. Local farmers brought their produce to the restaurant in the back of a pickup truck. I would watch my grandmother inspect and select the produce while bartering with the farmers over price, much like I see we do today at a farmer's market. In addition to vegetables, farmers would bring in both domestic and wild animals, which quite often ended up on our menu. What we and the townspeople ate was truly local food. Food mostly free of any chemical pesticides, herbicides, since farming was just beginning the transformation to agribusiness with its inorganic methods. All of the food waste from the restaurant was taken to my grandparents' vermiculture compost bin at their home. This provided them with a supply of worms for fishing, in addition to the compost for the large garden they maintained behind their house. My father was a welder pipe fitter who worked for the local natural gas company. He also ran the local welding repair shop evenings and weekends. When not busy at the restaurant, I worked in my father's shop and learned to be a welder mechanic. Farms and businesses would bring everything broken or in need of maintenance to my father's shop. He was the fix-it guy for machinery that today most people would throw away and replace with something new. The rule then was to use it up or wear it out and only buy something new when absolutely necessary. Like my grandmother, my father bartered for payment, which often consisted of food, goods, or services instead of money. My school was on the edge of town, and one building housed all K through 12 grade levels. The older kids looked after the younger kids. We were taught the responsibility of being a role model for others. I loved school, particularly science, engineering, and math. It seemed to me at that time that my classmates were also interested and very capable in the same subjects. By the time I was in junior high, my friends and I had assembled, built, and operated models of virtually every mechanical, electrical thing that we ever expected to use later in life. We knew how these things worked, how they consumed energy, how they outlived their usefulness, and how they were disposed of. I considered that firsthand cradle to cradle or cradle to grave experiences. My friends and I also made money. After school, we would go to the dam at the mill pond, located a few blocks from the school, and wade into the 2-foot deep water and catch crayfish. When our buckets were full, we took them to the local bait shop and sold them. We did the same thing with night crawlers. One of our parents would drive us to the cemetery, located about a mile outside of town, and drop us off around midnight. Armed with flashlights and buckets, we would scoop up the night crawlers that were lying on top of the freshly mowed grass. We also caught large bullfrogs from a nearby pond and sold them to my grandparents for frog leg dinners at the restaurant. In the winter, we collected sap from a maple forest, which was boiled into maple syrup. And in a gesture of community service, we would gather at the town dump on weekends with our .22 rifles and spend the day shooting the rats. It was a good life, an outdoor life, a life closely connected to the life-death cycle of nature, a life of balancing what we took with what we replaced, a life that was mostly environmentally responsible, a life of self-reliance. There was no concern, as there is today, for kids left inside. We were outside all the time. We learned about community, of sharing and looking after the well-being of each other, what we now call social responsibility. And it was a life of economy. Though we were all probably economically poor by today's standards, we never knew it. The value of hard work, earning your own money, paying as you go, and bartering with your neighbors created a truly responsible economy. The small town thrived and hummed with human activity. I've always been wary of people who only live in the past, who always look for the good old days, who always long for the good old days, who believe that if we just go back to the way it was, the problem will be solved. I am also wary of people who believe that the problem we create today will somehow be fixed in the future. A new technology will fix the abuses of the existing technology. A new government program or regulation will stop corporate abuses of the environment. A new twist on private enterprise will make saving the planet profitable. On and on. To me, sustainability is selecting the best sustainable social, economic, and environmental practices from the past and merging them with the best sustainable social, economic, and environmental practices of the present to create a mixture leading to a sustainable future. I often wonder who I would be today if I had not grown up where and how I did. I wonder how we expect the current and future generations to cherish, respect, understand, and interact with the natural world in a way that not only sustains what we have, but replenishes what we have taken when they have no similar childhood experiences to add to the mixture. Thank you.
Now for the dessert essay. And I hope you've all enjoyed hearing from the winners and some honorable mentions today. We certainly, as a committee, had just a great time, not only reading the essays, but talking about them and just sharing with each other what we all took away from it. So it was a wonderful experience. Glad we had the opportunity. It's my pleasure to introduce John Zeke. John is a commercial interior designer. He is a member of the IIDA and IFMA. He has 35 years experience designing award-winning and published designs, specializing in new concept office spaces and LEED certified facilities. John now co-owns and operates Recycle Box Bin, all one word, after trying to source a good-looking and affordable recycling bin for clients as well as in their own offices. So they decided it was time to create one of their own, and if you go to recycleboxbin.com, you can see the recycling boxes and the signage, and it's very good. Mr. Zeke also provides design and project management consulting for any size company through Morningbird Studio, LLC. And with that, John, come on up. I can't think of a better backdrop for your essay titled Thinking of Birds.
Well, great plug for the company. Thanks, Dave. Mine is about birds. Many people ask me why I called the company Morningbird Studio. I've always had a love of birds, both myself and my wife. My essay starts out with a short poem. Last night I had inspirations of a seagull. Her beauty and her sibilations, which were thoughts to me, showed me my idolatry in progress. As we flew do-sa-do, humanity in pictures I did stow, flying high in the skies with freedom in mine eyes. I love a still morning when the sun is warming the air. Most days I try to have a quiet moment during my first cup of coffee to watch and listen to the birds. They seem to add anticipation to the day, chirping and calling from tree to tree. It's a new beginning to a new day ahead. I watch them dodge and weave between the branches and perch on top of the trees, looking down on the landscape below. What a wonderful world this must be from the eyes of a bird. Now, I'm not the first person to think of being a bird, and there's probably good reason to be grateful I'm human and not a bird. My ability to reason means that I know to stay away from things that could electrocute me or poison me. I know that glass, although clear, is very hard. And I know I can't outrun a truck. So I guess what I really want to be is a bird with a human brain. So I'm hoping there's a genetic engineer here somewhere who can help me with that. This morning over a cup of coffee, I wondered what motivates us humans to change our natural environment. Birds are pretty happy with what nature provides them. We humans, on the other hand, seem to consistently alter our environment to our whims and our conveniences. Perfectly manicured lawns, giant homes, food from around the world, and power everything. How did we get to this state, and would it be possible to live as simply as a bird? So as I sip my coffee, my outdoor friends are showing me some things to consider. Here are 10 things the birds taught me this morning. Number 1, spend more time outdoors. Number 2, have a small home that's easy to maintain and made from local materials, i.e. nest. 3, eat local foods that are seasonably available. 4, nurture and teach our young and encourage them to fly. 5, stay away from trouble and those that can harm you. 6, sometimes dodging trees or taking risks is necessary and can be fun. 7, go south for the winter. Had to add this one since Michigan. Number 8, resources are limited, so don't overpopulate your neighborhood or the world. Number 9, love your mate. And number 10, fly to live. Both humans and birds live on what nature has provided on this planet. Birds seem to find simple joy in their search for food and shelter in order to survive. We seem to only find joy by altering our environment with materials and foods that come from faraway places. Try to look at the world from a bird's eye. See the world from a new perspective and try to simplify your life. You will find a new freedom from our human condition. Thank you.